Welcome,
Hey.
everyone. Tom, Kasumi, Stelios, and Baruch. Welcome to Developer-Facing Startup Founders Academy. Tom and Kasumi have the record for punctuality as befits that they're both Japanese, and they've been early to everyone, and then various other people will straggle in over the next 2 minutes or so.
All right. So, Adam, for us, it's an effort by itself, considering that we are on standard Jewish time. But look at us, both on time.
Although I lived in Japan for several years,
Okay.
and so
Yeah.
that completely altered my sense of punctuality.
Okay. Okay. So you're saying you are not on standard Jewish time anymore.
No, I was brought up that way, but I had it somehow strained out of me by living in Tokyo.
I just spoke with my wife and she was like, I was only 12 minutes late. And they like refused entering something.
Ish. Because that used to get me all the time at JFrog, because I would show up to every meeting on time. And
Yeah.
never was anyone else ever on time for a meeting.
Yep. Standard Jewish time. Here we go.
So I would just briefly tell Baruch, everyone here is a co-founder of a developer-facing startup, except for Sim, who is my assistant here. She helps run the course. All right, so this is the core. These are the people that show up every time. Probably a few more people will show up, but I will let you introduce yourself, Baruch.
All right. So thank you, Adam. Thank you for inviting me. And hello, everybody. It's great to meet you. My name is Baruch. I have like an official introduction in the slides. So I will probably just dive into it. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to talk to you. And I do have like a formal presentation, but let's make it a conversation.
Actually, hold on,
So,
Baruch. There's something
yes.
crazy going on with your audio. Can you check your microphone?
Yes, I can check my microphone. Yeah, no, I'm on a complete. Yeah, no, I should be on the right microphone. What's going on? What's
You're
crazy
getting
about?
static in the background.
Still, let me. Yeah, it does it.
Yeah, it's still
Do you
doing
hear
it.
static? Yeah. Okay. Let me reboot the mixer. It might help. Okay, now I'm on a crappy microphone, but probably no static. And now I will.
You're much clearer.
Now let me switch to a good microphone without static, and then it will be even clearer. Let me see if it's up already. Yeah, it should be up. Why I cannot switch to it? Oh, here we go. All right, how about now?
Even better.
Yeah, exactly. That was the purpose. All right, excellent. Yeah, so as I said, I have slides that I will share with you just for you to follow along, but feel free to have a conversation, ask questions, interrupt. You can do it in the end, you can do it in text, you can just unmute yourself. It's a small group, so we won't be in a mess if you do it. All right. So let me now share my slides. Here we go. That would be this one. All right. Are we recording?
Yeah, would you prefer I not record?
No. I prefer that you do because I want to share the recording with the slides and everything else.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So this presentation is called "Developers Are the Rainmakers," and that's a quote from our mutual boss, me and Adam from JFrog, Shlomi Ben Chaim. That was his sentence on the Nasdaq stage during JFrog's 6 billion IPO. And what he meant by that is exactly what we're going to talk about today. Developers and their interest made JFrog to what it is and made this successful IPO happen. Uh, yeah. So as I mentioned, my name is Baruch Sadogursky, and what you see here is my actual business card from JFrog. Chief Sticker Officer, the right part of it with the bad frog is actually sticker, so you can peel it off and put it somewhere. Also head of developer advocacy, that's my last role that I was there. I started with JFrog when we were less than 10 people, and started to do what we today call developer relations without even knowing that it has a name. And this is where I met Adam. He was the VP of marketing in JFrog, and tons of a huge part of JFrog's success is thanks to his leadership and building up marketing in JFrog as it was known by when like in its more successful days. And I was his report, and that was a lot of fun. I really miss those days. Wrote a couple of books, DevOps tools for Java developers and the Liquid Software, kind of a visionary book about how software should be released. The Liquid Software this book was a part of a marketing strategy, again, led by Adam. He can tell you more about the marketing conspiracy behind this book. Since then, I try to give back and talk about developer relations with startups unofficially, like now, or more officially as a developer relations advisor. That's a little bit outdated list. There are a couple of more on this list by now of startups that I advise developer relations on an ongoing basis. That's a lot like what Adam does for developer marketing, but more for developer relations and advocacy. We started talking about cultural differences, being on time for Japan, being late for Jews and Israelis. One of my favorite books about those cultural differences, and I would say a mandatory reading for everybody that work in a multinational organization, which means all of us, called The Culture Map by Irene Meyer. And this is one of the most profound diagrams from there. And you can see here different countries laid in emotional expressiveness versus confrontational or not confrontational. So you can see Japan is down to the right there as emotionally unexpressive and avoiding confrontation. And you can see my background right in the opposite corner, being born in Soviet Union and lived most of my life in Israel. So I'm exactly the opposite. It means that, you just need to keep it in mind during this presentation. I might be unnecessary, expressive, and confrontational, but hopefully I won't. In any way, the most important slide of this presentation is this. I prepared a special page for you at speaking.jbaruch. If you go there, you will find a page right there with you will see like the first slide of this presentation there, and you can click on it. The slides are already there if you want to go through them, share them, etc. The video, this is why I asked if this is recorded, so Adam will share the video with me and I will upload it there as well right after our session. And all the links for everything that we spoke about and gonna speak about, including all the books, the culture map and everything else. So conveniently, it's in the bottom of every slide. So if you ever forget, you can always pick there. Let's start with the biggest question. Does my company need developer relations? It comes a lot in our first conversation with those startups. They're like, oh, we're too small for developer relations. We don't really need it right now. And my answer is, relations exist. Generally, people have ideas about your company, about your startup, that can vary from I don't know them to I love them to I can stand them to they are irrelevant and not interesting, all of those are relations that already exist. So if you think that you don't need developer relations, what you mean by that, I don't want to invest in developer relations, but developer relations exist nonetheless. And probably if you don't invest in developer relations, they're just not very good. And what you need to remember is that everybody in the organization impact developer relations, starting from the founders that might not care about it, all the way to the employee that puts some very unfortunate post on a social media, and that reflects on your company. This is still developer relations. So regardless of whether you think it's important or not, and whether you think you want to invest in it or not, you're already doing it. And if you are not investing it, you're just doing it very poorly. So you should start thinking about it. Let's encroach a little bit on Adam's territory and talk about marketing funnel. So traditional marketing funnel in traditional products and even in software goes through these standard stages of awareness, discovery, evaluation, intent, purchase, and then loyalty. And traditionally, they're achieved by awareness is achieved by ads. It can be billboards, it can be television, it can be banners online, whatever. And then discovery for in software industry is usually achieved through webinars. You will be invited to learn more about the product and attend the webinar. And then evaluation, this is where kind of the emails come in, the SDRs that try to evaluate to make you to evaluate the software, and next step will be trying to call you and close the deal, purchase, some kind of a mix of calls and emails. And then loyalty is usually achieved through what is called in those companies customer success, which basically means support sessions. They will get with you online and will try to make sure that you use the product correctly and use enough of it so you will prolong the contract and sign an extension for next year or whatever. Now, the problem with this is that developers distrust traditional marketing. And you know the drill, right? If you are developers or in contact with developers, you know how this marketing spam annoys people and calls and banners. I mean, who doesn't have a banner like an ad blocker? Everybody have an ad blocker. Why? Because you don't want to be marketed at through traditional marketing funnel. Now, how can we do it differently? How we can do it in a way that developers will like it? Well, the funnel remains the same. Marketing fundamentals are unchanging. It's still awareness, discovery, evaluation, intent, purchase, and loyalty, but just doing it in the way that developers can relate. Awareness through search engine optimizations and technical content, bringing good content to where developers can find it and get interested. Discovery, exactly the same thing. Once I found the technical content that I'm interested in, I'm going to discover the product behind it. Evaluation, still technical content. I will keep digging in, and here is where I probably will try this product and sign up for a free tier, start to play with it, maybe see some videos about it. And it goes all the way down, technical content everywhere. Purchase, this is kind of, where there are like probably some kind of negotiations might happen. So this is still calls and emails, but loyalty then is again through technical content. If my documentation is good enough, then people will discover how to use the product properly. And this is how we will gain this trust for keeping the contract longer. So basically, this is where you can ask like, well, so it's actually just a marketing funnel implemented for developers. Is DevRel is just marketing tweaked for developers? Well, yes, as you saw, but actually it's much more than that. It's much more than that, and we'll run right into the culture map again. I apologize for all the very American memes that I have here, speaking about cultural differences, but it's just too fun to avoid. In any way, DevRel is much more than just marketing for developers. For example, let's talk about how product does their work. So product design, what is it? What is it includes? So there, ideate. We come up with ideas. Hey, that could be a cool feature, and then we plan how to implement it, and then the R&D implements it, and then we assert as product people, did it achieve the desired effect? Did people like it? Did people use it? Did people get the most out of it? And we ask even if that worked, and then we come up with new ideas. So most of it's guessing. We guess that this feature will be cool, and then when we plan, we just plan for what we already guessed. And then we guess again whether it was a success or not. It's a lot of guessing involved. The biggest challenge for product organization is predicting the right features. How do we know what features people will enjoy and what features people will like using? And here again is exactly where developer relations can help. We can actually ask the developers. And when we come with ideas, we can show those ideas to developer and ask them if they are good. And when we need to assess whether the feature is successful or not, we can again ask the developers, because the developers are the ones that are using or not using this feature, and they can tell us exactly why they are doing it or not doing it. And you know what? There is even more. Let's talk about headhunting. How do you hire the best talent out there? So attract, convert, engage, track, close, and delight look a lot like marketing funnel, because it actually is. Just the product is different. The product is people, but the stages are exactly the same. And a lot of it also done in exactly the same way as traditional marketing. Attract, again, ads. We see companies with the slogans that we are hiring everywhere. And then convert, well, that would be mostly LinkedIn messages, and engage. Then once we have interest, will be emails with recruiters, and then calls with recruiters, and then calls and emails with recruiters. And in the end of the day, the delight part is mostly meetings and some kind of a boring assessment of people. So again, it is, as I mentioned, the same slide as marketing, is just product is different. And exactly as developers hate cold and messages for marketing, developers still hate cold calls and messages for headhunting as well. And not only calls. So I did a trick in LinkedIn. Once you find me and we connect, obviously you will notice that I have this top hat, which is my top hat, as a part of the name. And what I did is I put the top hat as my first name, and then Baruch Sadogursky, my first and last name, and last name. And the reason I did it is to catch automated messages, because automated messages will use templating to greet me as a first name, to personalize it. And if I only see a top hat, I actually know that there is no person behind it. This is not a personal message. This is an automated message, because person will actually use my first name as it appears on LinkedIn. So yeah, it looks like an amazing opportunity for me, but it will go directly to spam because I recognized it as a spam and automatic message. So how do we do it correctly? Again, with developer relations. Through networking, we can actually attract the best people, convert them, engage with them, even track them, signing contract, and still probably will be calls and emails, and then delight the people who work in the company through developer relations. Now, what does that mean? A lot of times, the R&D teams, especially in smaller companies, feel unappreciated because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and the success is somewhere out there, but they're not immediately get the gratification that something that they do is important and significant. Developer relations can help with that. It can put the R&D efforts in the limelight of conferences and meetups and basically the big stage. You can either invite the developers to talk about what they are doing, or at least if they are shy, not up to it, don't want to do it, you can showcase what they are doing for other developers, giving them credit that will for sure elevate their morale, and they will feel more appreciated because of that. So developer relations serves the entire company, serves each and every organization in the company. Obviously, it helps marketing, developer marketing. Our shared experience with Adam and JFrog was a lot about that, but not only. It helps the product and taking guessing out of the game. It helps HR with recruitment and employer brand. This is critical. It helps R&D to put them in the limelight, and it helps support. The more and the better developer relations content you have, the less the burden on support is, because developers will learn how to use your product correctly and will obviously create less support load. And it even helps the sales, and you can see how the sales is a little bit smaller here because obviously it's not a directional relationship. But through networking, we can help sales with reaching the right people without being a cold approach. It warms the sales connections through the networking of developer relations. So I'm sure by now you are 100% convinced on the importance of developer relations. And you're like, yeah, let's do it. But then show me the ROI. Show me, why do I need to spend all this money for this particular activity? Prove me that I should go to KubeCon to reinvent, spend tons of money. Where is the return on investment for this activity? So in developer relations, ROI term is a trap. There is a wonderful talk by Stephen Pottsy, one of my friends in developer relations and colleagues, from DevRel Con back in 2018. You know exactly where to find it. You go to speaking.jbaruch and you will find the link to the YouTube of a video of his talk. And what he's speaking about is that there are activities that it's impossible to measure direct return on investment. For example, how about the sales offsite that you are running? What is the ROI of this one? How do you measure that? It's not easy. Without data, you are just another person with opinion, is a quote from Deming, who is a guru of business development for more than half a century. And this is one of the most weaponized quotes in history to basically shut down any activity that you don't like. Right? So if you don't like something, you can always throw a Deming on it and demand data that will justify it, and keep demanding more and more data until the person who actually wanted to do this activity just throw their hands up and give up, right? So the truth is that some ROIs are impossible to measure. And a lot of developer relations activities are this way. And I will give you an example for the KubeCon conference that I mentioned. Let's say you have a talk at KubeCon, and now you go there to deliver a talk. And then you have 100 people in the crowd, and they listen to you speaking about the technology behind your product, because KubeCon won't accept you if you do a product pitch. It has to be about technology. And then someone in the audience is interested, and they go ahead online, sign up for a product, and purchase it. How can you know that this activity was a result of you giving a talk at KubeCon? You might do some assumptions, some heuristics. For example, hey, they are from this region and they signed up. It might be because you spoke there. But KubeCon is a huge international conference. People from all over the world come there to listen to your talk, and they go back to whatever their place they work, and they purchase there, and it doesn't help. Or maybe they purchase through their company VPN, and it's attributed to an entirely different region or location. And this, when someone heard you speaking about the product and then went and signed up, this is the easiest of the complicated attributions. How about they were very impressed, but they don't need this technology right now? Instead, a month later, they speak with their colleague, and their colleague works for another company that are actually interested, and they sign up and eventually buy. How do you track this? This is absolutely impossible to track. So the question is, how many dollars did your trip to KubeCon brought in is impossible to answer. What can we answer? We can answer a general question of what is the impact of developer relations on our marketing efforts. And this is actually manageable to answer because we can assess where the leads and the sales come from. And there are only three sources in the grand scheme of things if you are not doing outbound sales, if you are not reaching to those companies with cold calls and then play golf with them and convert them. If you are working with inbound and want to see where the leads come from, there are also only three sources. The first is pay-per-click and ad campaigns, right? So you put it out there and Google will put your product on the top of the page and people will click on it and will convert. This is easily trackable and you can know exactly how many people come from there. The other source is subject SEO. For example, you have a company that does software for managing dependencies for DevOps companies. And when someone Googles how to manage dependencies for DevOps, your website comes first. Now, this is also easily trackable because the conversions from search engines are easily trackable. You will know exactly where people come from. Today with LLMs and Perplexity and ChatGPT search, it's not different. You always know where people come from those places, so you can count them as well. Everything else is a result of developer relations. Intentional, unintentional, by professionals, by random employees that did something that brought the interest to your website and to your product. Everything else is developer relations. When random people just appear and signed up to your service, it means that They're either Googled for the name of your service that they heard from somewhere, which is developer relations, or they heard the name somewhere, which is developer relations, and came and signed up, or they followed the link in a blog post or a LinkedIn post or a YouTube video. All of that is developer relations. And this is actually measurable because you take the total number of your leads and you subtract those two very measurable categories of ads and subject SEO, and the rest of it is developer relations. And while you see it growing or not growing enough, you know how are you doing with developer relations. Does it answer to your question, should you go to KubeCon or not? It does not. Does it answer a question, should I double down on developer relations? And I doubled down last year on developer relations. Did it bring the needed results? Yes. It's not great, but this is what we can do. We can measure what makes sense. For the rest of it, we just have to have trust and vision in outgoing long-term benefits. And here again, JFrog is a great example. We did developer relations for 11 years, non-stop, and eventually it worked great. During those 11 years, can we say, hey, this is exactly how it is measured, this is how conferences performed last year, etc., etc.? We never could. And Adam here can give his perspective because he was in charge of developer relations. He had to answer to Shlomi and the board those exact questions. Where's the ROI on developer relations? And in the end of the day, his answers and his trust, Shlomi's trust, board trust, is exactly why we kept doing developer relations all the way until a very, very successful exit. So the ability to justify what we are doing, not in terms of impossible or pointless ROI, but in terms of long-term vision, this is exactly of how developer relations should be justified. Another quote that I hate with passion is by the guy named Raymond Edwin Wolfinger. And that's the plural of anecdote is not data. The funny part about it is that it's exactly the opposite of what he actually said. What he said is the plural of anecdote is data. And the people that use this quote wrongly and to actually fight stuff like developer relations it's a shame, because the plural of anecdote is data when we talk about social studies. Think about it. All the social studies that exist are about plural of anecdotes. The experiment is watching people behaving in certain way, watching every person behave, combine it as data and study it. And developer relations is a social study because we're talking about people behavior that we try to learn and change. It's social by definition. So whoever tells you the plural of anecdote is not data have no idea what they are talking about. The plural of anecdote is data when we are talking about people. The next question that I want us to discuss is where to invest. There are tons of options that we can do when we talk about developer relations. We can deliver talks at conferences, we can run hackathons, we can write blogs, invest in social, make YouTube videos, do online talks, and spend our time answering questions on Stack Overflow, although that's probably is dead already. What works better? The answer is everything, if you are smart enough to reuse content. Blog post is a YouTube video and a conference talk and an online talk and a webinar. Content is content. when you reuse enough, you can hit multiple channels with the same content. Another very tough call, especially now in like our new post-COVID world, is should we invest in online activities or in-person activities? And there are obviously pros and cons in each and every one of them. So online obviously provides broader reach. In-person, by no doubt, that provides better engagement. Online is very easily measurable because we can see exactly how many people watched our conference talk, but in person actually helps building relationships. I can guarantee you that if we were in the same room together, we would end up on a completely different level of engagement and relationship after this talk. We would stay after, I will get much more questions, we will have meaningful conversation together with Adam and with you. This is what we can do because of the broader reach, but online would provide us with much stronger relationships in the end of the day. Well, the online is also measurable to an extent because yes, it will measure how many people watched your YouTube video, but it won't measure who of those actually went ahead and purchased your service because it might be their friend, their boss of their friend, and what's not, which are not measurable at all. And even if I share an online piece of blog post that has all the UTM additions to it, as a developer, I will probably delete all those UTMs because remember, developers hate traditional marketing. Well, and obviously online is much cheaper. We don't need to travel, but in person is the only way to collect this critical feedback that we spoke about for the product organization. I can ask until tomorrow, what do you like or not like about my product? I won't get anything from people online because we didn't build a relationship. We don't have the better engagement. So you will be hesitant to provide authentic feedback. So it is a tough call. The truth is somewhere in between them. And once you reuse the content, you can actually do both. I guess what I want to say here is you cannot neglect in person for the sake of online only. It won't work. The next question is, okay, now I want to build my developer relations team. What does it look like? There is a great book called The Business Value of Developer Relations by Mari Tungwell. And you can find it obviously at speaking.jbaruch. You can find the link. And she has an entire chapter about, here you go. Yep, that's the book. You have an entire chapter there about developer relations team organization. And the founding member of this organization and someone who is, if you need to pick one, that will be your first hire. And with JFrog, that was me for, I think, 7 out of those 11 years. I was the only one who is doing that, is your developer advocate, also known as technical evangelist. Now, the name here has a lot of significance. And I know that there are companies that prefer the name technical evangelist. I'm personally not a fan. And I'm not a fan because evangelist has a very strong cultural meaning, speaking about the cultural map. And this is someone who preaches to the crowd, someone who tells people, hey, that's the God way. That's the only right way. You need to listen to me. I will tell you how to do things right. And this is the opposite of what developer advocate should do. Developer advocate should listen to the developers and do what's right for them and not what's necessarily right for their organization. Ideally, in the end of the day, it will align, but listening back is very, very important part of the deal. So definitely developer advocate. Developer advocate is in charge for for creating content and delivering content. And as you remember from our previous pyramids and charts, content is king when we're talking about engaging with developers. So this is why this role is so critical, and this will be your first and maybe the only hire for a while. Once you're ready to grow and expand, the next will be your community builder. They're also known as community managers, and it's also not a great name because you do not manage a community. The community exists, you can help it grow and thrive. You're actually a builder, not a manager. And the job of community builder is community relations. It's making sure that the community is happy with you and you're doing the right thing with the community. Community builder will bring this community feedback to developer advocate to make sure that the community steers the company in the right direction. The next will be field marketing event manager, someone who will help organizing and eventually creating and managing conferences and meetups. And then user experience expert that will make sure that from the developer advocate, from the community builder, the feedback about the product is distilled, processed, reported back, and heard by the product organization. Technical writer, this will be someone who is very heavy on content creation, but maybe less on content delivery. Developer relations engineer, the technical part of the content, stuff like demos, integrations, APIs, this kind of stuff. This is the work of developer relations engineer, and maybe in some point of time, developer relations manager, and that's the person who is in charge of the success of the team by removing obstacles and let the team run. I cannot think about a single team in the entire organization, maybe except of C-suite, that needs less micromanagement than developer relations. Developer relations, by definition, are people who will hate micromanagement and will hate you for trying micromanage them. So developer relations manager is definitely someone who removes obstacles and not someone who micromanages the team. Now, as we mentioned, the first hire and probably the main hire for a while will be your developer advocate. Developer advocates are a very peculiar breed. They're both technical, highly technical. They're like people and like engaging with people. You can call them extroverts or whatever. And they know that they are in charge of trying to market your tool or your solution to the developers, and they don't despite this role of someone who tries to market something. And those three are very rarely coincide. And this is a great illustration, cat or dog or dog or cat or whatever you call it, from Eyal Vershevsky. That's a whole different story. I found this online, stole it for my presentation because we never cared about copyright back in 20 years ago or whatever, 15 years ago. And I delivered a different talk with the same illustration in a Java conference. And the guy in the first row said hey, I created this picture. And we're like, what? Eyal, he runs Jacksonville Java user group. And we were colleagues in Gradle for the last couple of years. And this is absolutely astonishing. And you cannot even say it's a small industry because I found this picture and it has nothing to do with the industry. And then I met Eyal in person, and there was an amazing story of how the world is a small place. In any way, it's hard to find a developer advocate. And you end up with two options. You can hire one of the people who have a proven record of being successful developer advocates. They're very easy to find. You already know them. If you don't know them, they're particularly not as good as developer advocate. The whole idea of developer advocate is that everybody know them and know of them. And hiring one of those has its own pros and cons. So first of all, they have an established brand. If you hire a rock star, they already bring their brand to the table. The problem with it that it's their brand and not necessarily the brand of your company, of your product. They obviously know what they are doing, they have experience, but also uh, we have surveys that prove that one of the most burnout professions in our industry are developer relations. So when you hire a developer advocate who's been there for years, you need to be very careful to make sure that they are still up to doing the job and not burned out. Obviously, they bring network, but again, it's their network. Are they willing to convert their network for the sake of your company? It's an open question. I'm not saying that they never will. I'm saying it's something that worth thinking about. The alternative to that is raising a rogue star. You find a developer within your organization, someone that already works for you, who is curious about being out there for the community, who's curious about delivering a conference talk, writing a blog post, recording a YouTube video. And they want to do it. They're eager to learn, but obviously they're beginners, so they not necessarily have the needed DevRel knowledge, and might be that you don't have it as well to teach them. They know the product really well. They've been with you from early days. They know the technical ins and out of the product, which is great, but they require mentoring before they start talking about it, so they will say the right things for the right audience and know how to listen back. They obviously have technical skills. They've been with you for a long time and you hired them because they're great, but you might lose the resource that they are now, either in R&D or support or maybe professional services and what's not, if you convert them full-time to developer advocate. And they're obviously much cheaper than hire a rock star, and there is no con in being a cheaper resource. So there are pros and cons in both, and it's worth thinking about what you want to achieve. How does a day in developer relations looks like? The answer is it looks different every day. How about a week? Still might be very different. When we zoom out to a resolution of a month, patterns start to emerge. What we see is that it's a cycle of coming up with ideas for content and then prepare that content and then deliver this content in all the channels that we spoke about, collecting feedback from the developers and the engineers, and then deliver feedback to product and other organizations. So this is kind of a very large zoomed out circle of developer relations and what we need to do day in, day out, month in, month out in developer relations. The last topic that I want to touch on, and this is something that you already discussed with Adam, of course, is how do I build my product for better developer relations? And that's a topic that is extremely important. For example, I've been working in a company that has great respect for developer relations. No, I'm not talking about JFrog. Great respect for developer relations and understanding of the importance of developer relations in marketing and top level organizations. But the product and R&D are completely lacking, and sales completely lack their understanding. And in the end of the day, the product that we had was impossible to promote through developer relations. It doesn't have free trial, it doesn't have free tier, it doesn't have open source core, it doesn't have service. What are we doing there? How the developers can engage with the product? The answer is they can't. And then there is it's impossible to do developer relations for such a product and such a company, right? The core for building the right product for developer relations is, ta-da, Magic Should Be Free by Adam Frankel. This is exactly what will bring developers to use, evaluate, and eventually purchase your product, subscribe for your service, etc. You need to make sure that whatever excites the developers in your product is what you want to get away for free. Now, what excites the developers is not what excites you. It's not what you think the coolest feature is. It's not what you worked hardest to build. It's not what your intellectual property is. Those all are important aspects of your product, but this is not what should be free. What should be free is what excites the developers. And this is where you ask, okay, if I give away the exciter, how do I make the money? So if I give away the exciter, how do I get the product? And the answer is, from a business perspective, what you give away, the exciter, is also what creates a chaos in the organization that tries it. Think about a service or a product that excites the developers and they start to use it in a large organization. There is one team that uses your tool. There is another team that uses your tool. There is a third team that uses this tool. This creates an organizational chaos in terms of governance and compliance on the organizational level. And the money that you make is by selling order that will calm down and will bring peace to the organization at large. You say, hey, did you know that there are 5 different teams in your organization that use our product? If you want a central management, single sign-on, integration with your enterprise tools, governance and compliance, here is our enterprise offering that will give the developers what they still use, will give you the peace of mind, and costs 6 figures a year. And this is how, while you give away the exciter for the developers, you sell the exciter for the enterprise people, and their exciter is very, very expensive. So to put it in a 3-tier diagram, because everything can be put in 3-tier diagram, this is what we are looking about. The exciter, it's personal, it's exciting, and it's free. This is the hook. The next level is the team level. The team level, the biggest value there is collaboration. If you have a feature that will help the team work better together, this is the first step when you can start showing revenue. It's small money, it flies below the radar, it's your $2,000 a year that the team lead can spend without going through the budgeting hoops in their organization. And they will start using it because the developers on their team love it and they see benefits in team collaboration. Once you have multiple teams in the organization that use this, this is where you bring the control and order. The enterprise features, the compliance, the security, all the big words that the people in the enterprise will like, and this is where the big money is. This is where the 6 digits are. So this would be about the product. And one more question about the product that I hear a lot is, well, let's do a great open source. And this is a great idea unless your open source is so great that it will cannibalize your commercial product. And we have examples of those companies that have an open source project so great that the companies are not going anywhere because they have nothing to sell. Everything that is great is an open source or can be achieved through extension of open source, and then they don't have any way to make any money. So when you do this open core, when you do this open source exciter, you need to remember that there are some features that you actually need to sell. And those features should be really hard to be able to implement on your open source because this is where your money is. And with that, we have time for questions. Just to remind you, you can find me everything at JBaruch. The slides and the video and all the links are speaking.jbaruch. And we have like at least 5 minutes for our Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Baruch. Wow. Okay, so questions. Do people have questions for Baruch? Please go ahead, Tom and Kasumi.
Hi, thank you very much for a wonderful talk. It very quick for me. One question about the trend change and trend shift and developer relations. I agree with you, and I'm from those backgrounds that developers generally prefer the in-person meetups and SEO and technical contents. But these days, when I talk with my technical advisory board, it seems that the trend may have changed. And most of people work remotely, and fewer people attend the offline meetups. And then they shifted from Googling contents on the Stack Overflow to relying on the Cursor or GitHub Copilot to ask some things. And then they prefer from long blogs to short social posts with images and videos. In those cases, I'm skeptical of investing long technical contents and having SEO to something different. But how do you analyze those trend shifts, and have you like changed your focus on the board?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely on point. Those are great observations, which obviously all of us experience, and obviously the content needs to change. And the content needs to change according to what developers actually consume, right? And if they prefer short videos to long videos, this is what we need to do. If they prefer short blog posts to long blog posts, this is what we need to do. And if the SEO doesn't work as much, instead the LLMs generate the right content by consuming structured reality augmented generated sources, this is where we need to invest. And one of the examples how you can make developers to consume your developer relations content through LLMs is providing them with embeddings that are made for their LLMs. You can say, you know what? You don't go to Stack Overflow to ask about our product, but instead you will ask your LLM about our product. Make sure that this source of information is a part of what your LLM based on when they generate your answers. So it really depends on how people consume their content. This is where you need to build your content correctly. Regarding people attending less meetups and conferences, this is true for some geographies. This is very true for United States, for example. It's and certain types of conferences and meetups. It's true for maybe kind of more mature technologies. So for example, Java conferences have a very hard time now struggling. But on the other side, stuff like AI is booming. Stuff like developer productivity engineering and developer productivity and developer experience are booming. So you constantly need to adjust, but it doesn't change the big cycle of things. Your ideate, create, deliver content, collect feedback, deliver feedback. This stays always. You just need to adjust to the new channels.
Okay, thank you.
All right, does anyone else have questions for Brooke? Okay, please go ahead, Guy.
Thank you so much, Baruch. Great energy and very exciting to follow you. My question is, what would you recommend, like a good platform? I know Adam touched on that in the past, and creating DevRel by spinning up a Slack channel or workspace or creating a Discuss and whatnot is not enough on its own. But then what would be a good platform to engage, nurture, grow that community beyond signing up to emails and whatnot? Sorry.
So generally, unfortunately, at the moment, there are two main options. The one of them is Slack, the other one is Discord. And none of them are great for this particular task, but it doesn't matter. What really matters and what really guarantee your community success is what you do on the platform, not necessarily which platform you use. And although there are barriers in both, and some developers will say, well, another Slack workspace, I'm dying here, I'm not going to sign up. And the others say, you know what, I heard Discord because it's buggy and it makes me go through loops every time I want to log in, so we'll have some churn there. In the end of the day, if the content on those platforms is good enough, people will come. And by content on those platforms, I mean generally three things. The first is general engagement. You sign up to the platform, what do you see? Will someone greet you? Will someone point you to the right direction? Will someone introduce themselves and be nice to you and welcoming? The other is, do you get answers? You have your first question about a feature on your product. If you don't get this answered and you still need to sign up to Slack, why are you even bothering? And the third, so that's kind of two, and the third is your engagement. Are you encouraged to engage with others and not just use as a platform for Q&A? And if you do all three of them successfully, then whatever shitty platform we use will still be good enough. Okay, my camera died. Will still be good enough for the community.
Rook, your camera has just gone out.
Yeah, I know it died. I need to restart it. I don't know what's going on.
Although I think we're actually over time right now.
It's a mutiny of technology that I have today.
Yes. Does anyone else have questions for Baruch while we have him live? Okay, Baruch, I want to thank you so much for showing up here and delivering this talk today. Great information. I hope everyone has noticed in some cases, Baruch echoes what I say exactly. In some places, he says things that are completely different. And this is natural. When you have people who are experienced, you're going to get different points of view.
Absolutely.
But thank you for showing up, Baruch. I will send you the recording as soon as Zoom finishes processing it. The rest of you all, have a great day. And I will see you possibly on Friday.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.